Kymake, and that fellow over there is Tim Cooper from National Parks at Night, but you guys knew that already.
Hello, people.
Thank you so much for submitting images to review for our second Night Crew image review. We've got some good ones tonight. And Tim and I are going to be going through these, flipping back and forth, taking turns. And we're going to be doing this just the way we do in a workshop situation in Lightroom. And we'll be sharing our screens and talking about the images as they come up. So we've got, we have, I think, 11 images from 7 different people tonight, and you're all here.
Yep, that's correct.
So I will take the first image, and I'm going to start and share my screen. And all right, have you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So this is Greg. I'm guessing this might be in response to Gabe's blog post last week.
Well, I hope so.
Shoot at home while you're stuck inside, or maybe it's just a natural response to not having the other option. But it's very cool. I like the different textures of the the in the glass and then in the background. Looks like it's EL wire, right? Under, like, it's, yeah. So you can see the stationary EL wire there, and then the flame simulated flames, and the wild and crazy way that it's reflecting off the glass in there. So, and what I think really makes it, it could be really difficult to see what's going on there, but the edge lighting on the coffee pot all the way around separates it from the really chaotic background, where the lid and the handle don't get that same, luminescent edge lighting. It's not as clearly defined, but we know it's there, and I think it's working well. I like the high contrast black and white, and I'm wondering about the choice to make it a black and white image. Maybe it was, I don't know. Be curious to see it in color either way, though. But and let's see. I don't know. I might be tempted to crop in a little bit on the bottom and the sides just to make it a little tighter. I don't know, maybe, but again, I really like the way it's, there's so much chaos in there, but at the same time, you can read it. It's organized. That formal central composition makes it easier to pick out what's going on in there as well. But so let's see, 20 seconds, f8, 50 millimeters. So not a very long exposure. Cool.
Yeah, super creative.
It's kind of, yeah, it's the kind of thing that lends itself to trying a million different times, and everyone's always different. So very cool. Thank you, Greg. That's pretty neat. The glow off the handle here, that's pretty cool too. I like seeing through the little window in the handle.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right, I'm going to stop my share and pass it over back to Tim.
Okay. You seeing the screen? Lance?
Yes.
You good? Excellent.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. All right, let me just move these little bars out of the way. And okay, I think that should be good. All right, so who do we have here? Okay, Vince, Golden Gate at Night.
Cool. I think the Titles got swapped on his images.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's right. Because the other one was the Golden Gate. Yeah, the black and white. Okay. Well, you know what, Vince? I think this is a really classic take on a skyline, and I think it's well done. There's some interesting things going on here. While the sky looks pretty neutral, we have this very yellow feel to the night lights. And typically when the sky is going to be that neutral, I would think these lights would be a little bit more neutral. I'm not advocating for a white balance change. It's just a curiosity. But I, as we've said in the past, white balance is really super subjective. I personally might go in and change that a little bit. And we'll do that in a second, but let's talk about the composition first. So while the line here in the center, the horizon line is almost in the center, it's off a little bit. But Vince, what I always like to try to do is to push the horizon one way or another, given what's more important. And in this case, I think the water is actually more important, simply because we've got all that cool reflection. So I don't want the amount of water to equal the amount of sky that we have in the frame. So what I might consider doing would be taking the sky down a little bit. Oops. Let me undo that. There we go. So we could turn that into a pano. I might consider bringing this down a little bit just to get that more focus on the water itself. Yeah, I think that feels better. And now this is a little bit larger of a space than this was. And of course, this is where where the interest is. So that would be the first thing I would do. Other than that, it looks like it's nice and sharp throughout. And we've got, what do we got? F16 for 30 seconds. Okay, so that's good. And ISO 640. All right, that's all looking good. So let's look at this yellow, Vince. You may like that yellow, and if so, please just keep it. But a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually go in to what's called the HSL panel over here, and we could slightly desaturate that yellow if we wanted by clicking on this desaturate and going into that yellow and just dragging and dropping down, and notice how that starts to get more white. That's one way to approach it. Another way would be to take your white balance and push it a little bit more towards blue. And now you can start to see the city lights become more separate. So notice how we have here, like everything is sort of the same shade of yellow within the lights. Once we start pushing that temperature towards blue, we start to get a separation in the lights. Now we're starting to see greens and blues and whites and yellows. And to me, that's usually a little bit more exciting. Now, the problem, of course, is look at the blue sky. It's horrible. So then you could go down into the HSL and take that blue value, and you can actually change its hue because it went kind of purple. So we can kind of push it back to where it was. And notice I've just moved the blue value just a little tiny bit. All right. Now this would look a little bit better if we were doing it to the original raw, folks. Right now we're doing it to an image that's not quite a raw image anymore. But that blue is feeling a little bit too awkward for me. So let's just bring that back up. So at any rate, I would say, play with that and find what you like. But I think we could get a little bit more separation in the color in the lights, Vince. Other than that, I think technically right on the mark. As far as everything else goes, the sharpness, the ISO, it's all great. So good job. Let me send this back to Lance.
All right. So, hey, I noticed that when we're screen sharing, the little video windows with the two of us appear in the upper right-hand corner over the develop panel. So if you want to see what we're doing in the develop panel, you can actually grab the two little windows and move them over, somewhere else where it's not impacting the screen. So. All right, have you got me there, Tim?
I sure do. Yep, you're looking good.
Okay, cool. So Chicago River, Christina's image. Wow. This is wow, really dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Just great. So the last image, Vince's was a city skyline a little bit earlier before it got completely dark. So there's a little bit less contrast. And here, there's really well-controlled highlights considering the contrast range of really dark sky, dark water, and bright city lights. There's not too many lights actually, light sources in the frame that are really, really blown out. But, places like this and, over here, this is probably going to say you've already got your highlights down, by 100. So, it's slightly clipped at least in, one or two channels. So one possible way to go about that would be, if you can, to shoot a little bit earlier before it gets dark. If you can't, let's see what else we can do. I did notice also that you've got your whites cranked up pretty high and blacks down. I'm going to actually just, I'm going to reset the tone panel by double clicking on that. And now you can see what we're working with. And look at this. That looks like to me like it's not really clipped. We're still blown out where the light sources are directly in the frame. Here, maybe, maybe not, but let's take a look. So I'm going to start, first of all, before doing anything else, what do we think about the white balance? It looks fairly neutral, so I'm going to leave it there for now, but I'm going to go in here hold down the Option key on my Mac or an Alt key on your PC and look at the whites. I'm going to set the white point first. And I'm just moving that white slider, instead of moving it up like you had it, I'm moving it to the left and bringing it down. I can take it all the way down and it's still showing some clipping in the white points. So I don't probably want to take it down quite that much, but pretty far down. Now I'll do the same thing with the blacks. And now holding down the Option or the Alt key, see that there are no blacks anywhere in the image. And as I move the slider to the left, that's what's black. So typically on white point, we want just maybe stars, not much else to be black, to be white. But on a black point, we generally do want a little bit of black in there. All right, so there's our black point. Now let's push up the shadows and see what we can get out of there. And let's take a look at the highlights and see what we can pull back. So I'm going to go in here because I want to see detail in there. Just pull in this. Yeah, eventually you can see like in this spot up here, it's starting to lose, there's no detail. It's clipped and you're starting to get, grayed out. So we don't want that. I'm just going to bring that back until we get rid of that little bit of gray. That's going to bring some life and some punch and some snap back into the image. All right. Now I'm not quite happy with the black point yet. So I'm going to go back and pull that down just a little bit more. All right. So notice I did not touch the exposure slider at all. The exposure slider is going to be moving all the tones in the image one way or the other, brighter or darker. But these individual adjust sliders allow you to move the different points in the tone curve in one direction or the other without affecting anything else. So, so you have a little bit of vibrance, a little bit of saturation in there. I think that's fine. It's one thing that we might do, the orange color is pretty strong, right? So back in HSL where Tim was a minute ago, click on the word saturation and take the targeted adjustment tool right here. I'm just going to pull the orange down just a little bit by mousing over an orange spot in the image. And as I scroll down with two fingers, you can see that the orange and the red, a little bit of red and a lot of orange are bringing it down. So that's just kind of toning down that orange so it's not quite so strong. Doing this adjustment, it is possible to bring some artifacting into your image. If you use these sliders and pull them all the way to the left or the right, you can get some edge effects in there. So you got to be careful whenever you're using these to go in and take a look and make sure that you're not getting any kind of haloing around the edges there. All right, so that looks pretty darn good. You know, again, if you want, you know, if you want something punchier, if you want you know, a more vibrant image, you can absolutely do so. You know, I don't think there's really anything wrong with the way you had this developed, but I don't know. I wanted to see just a little bit more detail in there. Now, last thing, wanted to see you use the auto upright transformation. We turn that off. Yeah, just a very minor adjustment. So cool. And the auto adjustment took care of that nicely. So I think this composition is very nice. I like it quite a bit. The placement of the buildings is good. It's great. No crop whatsoever. Only thing I would say for composition would be, it might be nice to see this edge a little bit more. You know, see that this building either completed or cut it off just a little bit more, because it seems like it's right on the edge. The other thing with that is cropping in there is you get these highlights right on the edge of the frame, and this one down here too. So having just a little bit more room on the right side of the image would be helpful, especially if you think you're going to be doing a perspective adjustment or a transform adjustment where you're going to lose some of that image anyway. It's always good to have a little bit of extra room, but I definitely appreciate your tight framing and tight composition there, with no need to crop. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Great image. All right. Back to you, Tim.
All right. We looking good?
Yep.
Okay. Oh yeah, this is lovely. I'm glad this is in black and white. I have no idea what the color is, but I love black and white, as many of y'all know. So let's see, it's a little small, so I can't tell if it's sharp, but it does look sharp throughout. And let's see, ISO 200, 20 millimeter, 6.3. Oh, okay, that's a good long exposure. Almost 6 minutes there, or about 6 minutes. So cool. I really like what that's done to the sky. The lighting, Suzanne, if you light painted this, great job. If this is natural light, it's also very nice. I like the fact that the boat is actually the brightest thing in the image. And that, folks, is a really good way to go about making black and white images, is just to simply ensure that your main subject is going to be the brightest thing that is in the scene. Now, we don't always have to do that, of course, but it works out nicely. Notice how it's even brighter than the land here and the grasses. It's a really nice strategy. So good job on that. The grasses here, I like them, and I think it looks like the angle that you painted from, or the angle that you took the picture from, is nice, because we're kind of getting a raking light going across the scene here, and that's working well both on the boat and on the ground here, and on the grasses as well. So, you know, compositionally, there's really not much I would change here. I think it's really nice. In a perfect world, you know, if you could have stepped maybe 10 feet forward, then you would have had the whole reflection inside this area. But I think from the position that you shot it from, it's nice. We're able to see this tip. It's not an awkward crop here. But we always do want to pay attention to where that reflection is being cut through by another object in the foreground. But I think you've done a good job here. So when it comes to processing the black and white, again, I think you've done a pretty good job. We are seeing that we're getting some pure black in here. Although I think we could probably bump it up a little bit, make it a little snappier by bringing the blacks down just a touch. And when it comes to working with blacks and black and white, we can crush the blacks, meaning we can lose detail in there, and it's no big deal. You just wouldn't want to have it all over the image for a shot like this. But having little areas with pure black, no problem whatsoever. We haven't quite reached a white spot up here either. So if you keep your eye on this little triangle right here, you could just move those whites right up until that triangle glows and then move it back a touch. And then that's another way of doing exactly what Lance did before with the Alt key. And already you can see it's starting to be a little more snappy. Now, if you want it to have an overall slightly brighter or a slightly darker feel, at this point you would move to your exposure slider and move that ever so slightly down to give it a darker feel, or move it ever so slightly up to give it a lighter feel. And that's entirely up to you how you want that to be. But I think just the addition of lowering those blacks a little bit and raising those whites a touch has really done, nice things for the image. Now, the last thing I would do is to keep us focused in here, is I would slightly darken down this, and this area is already pretty dark, so we're doing pretty good. But watch how easy this is. If you just grab a little local adjustment brush, and I'm going to double click effect to reset it, all I'm going to do is lower my contrast and lower my whites a little bit. And as we paint in this area, we're going to make that a little bit darker. So let me bring down the exposure some. And then we'll just do the same thing over here. And you can see I'm ever so slightly darkening down those edges so that our focus is going more into here. So pretty subtle little effect there. And I think it's lovely. I think it's a great capture. And it didn't take much to really start making that glow. So yeah, I think that's awesome, Suzanne. Really, really nice work. Cool. All right, back to you, Lance.
Okay. Here we go. Brian. Oh, wow, with a Pentax K1. Very cool.
I'm not seeing your screen.
Not seeing? Sorry. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Love that camera. I've always wanted to get one, but never taken the plunge. I know a couple people who shoot with it and just love it. So neat. I'm guessing this is drone lighting, and also because I saw the other image that you submitted as well. So something else that I've been really wanting to explore lately. Anywho, let's take a look at the image. We've got 77 millimeters, 48 seconds. So first thing that kind of jumps out at me are your star points or star trails. They're more in the league of trails than star points, but they're not quite traily enough. It's kind of in that gray area in between points and trails. So I'd say let's either go for a higher ISO and a shorter exposure using the 400 rule. So 400 divided by 77 will give you the maximum number of seconds you could get and still maintain star points, where you have crisp star points as opposed to star trails. Or go the other way, go down to 100 and go with a much longer exposure, which of course is going to change the relationship of the ambient light to the lighting that you've added with the drone. Whether or not you can keep it up there, lighting long enough to maintain that same lighting ratio or not. Yeah, I don't know. It's a battery question, but it's pretty fabulous. Yeah, I love the contrast of the quality or the color of the light on the trees against the blue sky. It makes it really pop out. I think it's great. It's well done. It's very cool lighting technique that just allows for a lot of possibilities and things that we can never do otherwise. aside from the star trails being a little bit either too short or too long, there's one other thing that jumps out at me, and the light just caught on this branch right there, and it's so bright and so strong. Let me just take it out of there real quick. Just to see show you what it looks like without it. Whether or not you choose to do this, that really jumps out. You know, it really stands out. I find it to be distracting because it's pretty much the brightest thing in the frame, and it's in a relatively dark area. So take that sucker out of there. You know, you could possibly make an argument for taking this one out because it's slightly distracting, but it's not bright white the way the other one was. Anyway, I don't have any issues with anything else that you did here. I think it looks great. With a 77mm lens at like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 minutes, you could get some really nice star trails. And if you went up to 10 minutes, you'd have fabulous, really nice star trails that are just, going through the frame and adding, to a design element. Basically, you get because you have the movement, the diagonal movement of the stars through the frame. So nice work, and hope to see more of this from you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, back to you, Tim.
All right, Jerry. Cool. I wonder where this is. I like it though. All right, so Jerry, we've got a pretty soft light on this foreground here, and a nice bit of the Milky Way coming up through. Ooh, look at that beautiful star. A nice bit coming up through the Milky Way. Oddly enough, it looks like the stars almost have doubled during the 241 seconds. That's interesting. I'm curious. Hey, Lance?
I'm seeing some significant coma.
Yeah, but it like down in here, even where we're not seeing coma, the stars, like that one seems sharp, but these are not quite sharp, and yet exposure is almost 3 minutes.
Only the planet seems really sharp to me. It seems like it's a little bit soft. That rather than doubling, to me, it looks like a combination of coma and focus.
Okay, so so I'd say, Jerry, maybe not quite sharp on that. So we might want to address that, but I know you know how to get that sharp, so it's probably just that one image.
Sorry, Tim. It's he's just mentioned in chat. It's 25 shots stacked in Starry Landscape Stacker.
Okay, interesting. Well, I haven't used that before, so I can't really comment on that, but that's why maybe it's 241 seconds.
Go up in the upper left-hand corner and zoom up to 100%.
Yeah, you can see that coma.
Yeah, major coma. So
I wonder if we can look at the what kind of lens was shot here.
It's a 21.4, so I'm guessing is Jerry's at a Sigma or IRIX 15?
Okay.
Interesting. The metadata says it's a 20mm f1.4. And the only one of those I know of is the Sigma.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Well, at any rate, so we know what to do about that sky. If that was the IRIX, I'm sure that was tack sharp. I would say maybe try stacking it again, or look at the individual images, Jerry, and see if if one of them is out of focus, or one of them is not quite sharp, and just check out the individuals before you start stacking and doing that again. As far as the lighting on the foreground goes, I think it's nice because it's really super soft. We still do have some shadowing in here. So it looks like you may have painted from a couple of different angles. We see some light coming in from back here. This is probably the natural light that's available. And then in here, it's really super soft. And so what we want to do is, again, we want to direct our viewer's vision through the image. And right now, like this tone, this tone, this tone, this tone, it's almost all exactly the same brightness. And so when light painting, we might want to leave the light a little bit, leave it longer in one spot and, shorter in another spot to begin to define our landscape. And you've done that here. You've made these areas a little bit brighter. I'm not quite sure if this is the masking effect from Starry Landscape Stacker, but I can see like it's sort of out of focus here and sharp here. Are you seeing that, Lance?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'd say that's probably the masking in Starry Landscape Stacker and what's going on in there. So again, let's check out one of those individual images and see what we can do with that, Jerry, and then try loading them in again to Starry Landscape Stacker. But in the meantime, this would be, this is a fine place to just do a little bit of vignetting on the bottom here so that this area becomes brighter and this area becomes a little bit darker. And again, I'll just do a really hack job here just by grabbing the brush, double clicking effect, and I'll just bring the exposure down a little bit. And you can see as we start to, paint that in, paint in the edges here, we're starting to, start to look down the path a little bit. And I would do that more, judiciously or spend more time doing it. But you can see with the on and off how that's kind of leading your eye in. And I think that would be beneficial, Jerry, to make this center part of this image a little bit brighter and darken those edges at the bottom to really draw our viewer through. So cool. Yeah. So overall, a great image. Let's just look at those individual images before you stack them together for softness in any of the stars, and then go from there. Yep. All right, Lance.
All right.
Not seeing your screen, but
Yep, hang on.
okay.
Sorry. There we go. Sorry, that window, Zoom window closed on me. Cool, Seth. This is awesome. Well, I'm guessing it's a single exposure, which is pretty fantastic. 300 millimeter lens, a 25th of a second at f11. Was that a photo pill shot, or did you just happen to figure it out on your own there? Banger exposure. You got plenty of detail in the moon, no clipped highlights in the tower. So see, oh, it's okay. Processed image. Yeah, it's because it's not a raw file. I can't really do a whole lot of adjustment on the color there. I was just going to see, maybe take it a little bit bluer, but again, totally personal choice. Fantastic. Let's see. Question is he's asking if this would be better as a black and white image. Well, it certainly works as one, and the contrast that you get is pretty fantastic. Yeah, so I don't know. I think you could definitely do it that way. I would like to see with the original, with the raw file, what it looks like with a white balance adjustment. But just doing a simple desaturation on here, it looks great. Usually when I go black and white, like to increase the contrast a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that. make sure that we're not clipping anything in the moon. Bring up our highlights a little bit. Anything in the shadows to pull out of there? Yeah. You probably have seen, whether you know the image or not, Bernice Abbott's New York at Night, 1943 or so. It's I think it's shot from the Empire State Building. I'm not sure, but it's overlooking the Manhattan skyline, and it's this really strong, crisp, contrasty overview of the buildings of New York. And that, as soon as this went over to black and white, that was the first thing that I thought of, was that image. So check it out. It's Bernice Abbott, New York at Night, 1943. We've got 3 stars in here. I don't know if you can pull any more of them out in the raw file, but well, there's a couple of other little teeny tiny ones there. I don't know. I might be inclined to make them go away, just because it looks like, it's not very often you get to see stars in New York, but it's a little distracting because they're just the tiny little dots there. But you did a fantastic job with the exposure, nice and sharp, nice and steady. A 25th of a second on a 300 millimeter lens, way up high off the ground like that. That's impressive. So I'm guessing you spent a lot of time, as much time as you had there to shoot. But good for you. Congratulations on being in the right place at the right time. Curious, have you printed this? Because this would make a great print too. One last thought is, maybe consider toning this window in the lower right corner. Tone that down just a little bit. And these bright spots here on the edge. I love your framing. I don't want to see you crop it. But again, these bright spots on the edge take my eye, to the edges of the frame rather than to what's going on in the main image. But you nailed it absolutely perfectly on the exposure. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So Lance, if you could, I'm losing my group chat. If you could just let me know if somebody has questions or comments as I'm talking about this. Okay. So let's see here. We've got Brian again. Wow, that's cool. Drone lighting. Yeah, that is really nice. It just gives us, I'm assuming that's drone lighting, I have to imagine. But look at that beautiful light that it gives us coming straight down from above. And Lance had talked a little earlier about, sort of marrying the exposure, the ambient exposure with the drone lighting exposure. And I've never done this, so I'm not quite exactly sure how it works, but it seems that the sky is really, really pretty dark. And so what I might try is doing a little bit less power on the drone lighting and making the ambient exposure go longer, or maybe moving the drone through faster or something. We were here at a 30-second exposure and ISO 500. So if we could diminish the power of the drone lighting a little bit and allow our the ambient exposure to come up, we might get some more exposure in that sky. And then it wouldn't just be a black heap at the top, but rather we'd see some stars and some, some blue to that sky. But I think, oh gosh, it's just lovely light. And so I think it's beautiful. The only thing I would say is, if we notice here, this part, like the top of the mountain is a little bit darker than right here. I'm not sure if that was some post-processing stuff, or if that was the drone not being far enough away. But basically the whole ridge line here is just a little bit darker than right below it. So I might suggest moving that drone past a little bit and illuminating the top edge further, so we don't have that top edge of the mountain kind of blending into the darker background. If that makes sense. And boy, and here I just might consider, I might consider a slight crop one way or the other. To me, this is the most brilliant and coolest part of the image. And so you've turned it into a pano, but notice how this is a little darker over here. We could probably lose some of that. Let me undo my thing there. Let's see, undo the lock. So, and then maybe coming in a little bit from the left, we don't need quite all this edging in here. So to me, somewhere in here, we're beginning to talk more about this edge. And let me just put lights out on so you can see that. Yeah, and that to me feels better than this, because I'm kind of moving across the frame and I'm not finding the lighting as interesting over here as it is here, where all the real drama is. So I think by coming in, we really start to present this as the hero of the story. And then bringing this in, we're not as tempted to slide all the way down, but we're staying more into this area. So I think that's a beneficial crop. Overall, really, really nice work. Kudos for getting up that drone lighting. I think it's awesome. So yeah, maybe we'll just talk about getting a little bit more light in that sky. Yep. Lance,
Yeah.
do you have anything you want to add to that with the drone stuff, or was there any questions?
Yeah, I wonder if the lighting is just a matter of getting a little bit higher up on the ridge with the drone. Is that what it is? And I definitely agree with you about more ambient exposure in there. The bird doesn't have to be flying during the whole exposure.
Right.
So there's no reason not to leave it open to let that burn in. Of course, there's other ways to go about it too. You can, you could be shooting during moonlight as opposed to, a new moon or what have you. You can do earlier twilight, longer exposure. Like you said, you drop the power on the light perhaps and keep it up there longer. But yeah, that the edge at the top of the ridge line there, it looks like it wants a little bit more separation. And I don't know if that's a processing thing or if it's just the angle of the drone wanting to be up a little bit higher or a little further back on the ridge. I'm going to put a message in the chat window. If you haven't seen it, check out Ruben Wu. And I believe it is Lux Noctis. It's a series of drone lit mostly Western landscapes that he does some lighting in this style, but also creates some geometric shapes in the sky hovering over top of land formations. Really cool work.
Cool. All right.
Oh, thanks, Matt.
Buddy.
All right.
And you got it.
All right. Next. All right. Cool. Another Christina image.
I'm not seeing it, Lance.
Not seeing it? What's going on here? Uh-oh.
Yeah. It says it started screen sharing, but all I'm seeing is darkness. But all I'm seeing is a black screen.
Shoot. I'm not sure what's happening here either.
Turn on your video for a moment.
Where's
try unsharing and then sharing again.
My Zoom, the whole Zoom window is grayed out.
Oh no. Okay, well, while you're looking for that, you want me to go on to the next image?
Sure, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here.
Okay, so go ahead and stop share if you can, or okay, so yeah. Let's see.
Hang on. All right, I'm back here. Is that me or is that you? That's you.
Yeah, that's me. Would you like me to continue,
I
Lance?
think I got it.
Okay, let me try again. I'll stop sharing and you can go. I'm seeing you now.
Got it?
Nope, still black.
Huh.
Hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
But we're seeing your video, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's
That's
weird.
weird. Are you sharing the right screen? Do you have two screens up?
I do.
And do you try
Uh,
toggling between the different apps? There you go.
Now
Now
you
we're
got
seeing
it?
you. Yep.
I didn't do anything differently. Just turn it on and off again. Okay.
Hmm.
Sorry about that, everybody. That was weird. Okay. Um, Todd Lake Moonset. Very cool. All right. There's some very interesting stuff happening in the bottom part of this frame here on the landscape. Result, I imagine, of the the backlighting from the setting moon. I'm a little perplexed looking at this area where the moon obviously was. We've got this flare coming in from the moon, and also some Milky Way image in here as well. So really,
Lance, I might have an idea on this.
tell me.
Can you zoom in again on the moon area?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that this very well could not be the case. But Christina, did you put this together in HDR in Lightroom? Because sometimes when in Lightroom, when you do HDR, the area that's ghosted will get really super grainy like this. And it's one of the reasons I don't use Lightroom all that often for HDR. I'm just guessing there. And if Christina can maybe type in the chat thing, maybe that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, it's 200 ISO on a D7100, and it's reading at 199 seconds. So that's telling me multiple images actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did not use HDR. Okay.
Sequator.
Sequator or Starry Landscape Stacker?
I think Sequator from the last time we did this, Sequator adds up the cumulative amount of time and edits the metadata.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Christina said she didn't use HDR.
Huh. Okay. I did notice up here process version 3. So time to update your.
She said she thinks it was Sequator.
Okay. Yep. Good call, Matt. Anywho, it creates this very kind of confusing situation over here. One way to it, on the other hand, it makes this beautiful lighting here on the foreground, the backlighting. But this is a little bit weird and just kind of, I didn't mean to do that. Stop. What I'm going to do is take a local adjustment brush and just bring down the whites and the highlights and see that's a little too much. See if we can bring that down, take a larger brush and kind of tone that all down just a little bit. It's yeah, it's still in there. It's a little bit less obvious, but maybe bring down the blacks just a little bit more, add some more punch to the image overall by bringing the black level down. And yeah, and then up with our whites. And it just gives a little bit more punch to the image overall. I think the sequator effect, we're seeing a little bit of long exposure noise and a little edge effect in there when I went that way and increased the overall contrast of the image. One thing that I keep thinking about is the composition though. It's a beautiful night sky, but it feels a little like most of the interest in the image is down at the bottom of the frame, not in the night sky. And I actually want to just bring that sky down a little bit. And, that kind of dividing the landscape into thirds, to me, that feels a little more balanced. Now we've got this log leading us into the frame is a much stronger, more forceful part of the image. It leads us up here. We catch this one. Our eye goes across the reflection, across and back and forth and up onto the Milky Way. So I think with this tighter crop, our eye is led through the image much more than it is in the original framing, because now it's more like almost like half and half, and we're flopping back and forth between the top half and the bottom half of the image. So to me, it feels more powerful like that, and we're getting what we need from the sky from this part of the image. But got a little bit of an airplane trail in there, so it's kind of hard to see my cursor, but I'm just gonna take the clone tool or the healing brush tool, click on one end of that trail, shift click on the other end of that trail, and choose a different spot until I get one that I like. And just, you don't want anything distracting you from it's 100% nature shot. There's a little bit of flare in here from the setting moon. You can work to remove that or not. It's not hugely problematic. And then the famous Lancify technique, just add a little bit of vignette, post-crop vignetting on there, and it helps contain the image and just holds it all together a little bit. So, but I love the quality of the light on the water here and in the foreground. And I love the way this log leads us into the frame, and it just points right to this thing right here. And I love that this is here, and I love the placement of it and the way it just carries our eye, through the image. So nicely done, nicely done.
Agreed. All right, let's see what we've got here. Oh, cool. Okay, Vince, this isn't the Hudson, but this is the Golden Gate. Awesome. Okay. Wow, that's really powerful. I think compositionally, this is, to me, it feels really right on the mark. You've chosen a spot for these lights to come through that is not being blocked by these light posts, which I think is really important. I remember, us walking all up and down here and getting in different places. And this is just a really nice spot here. And the line of traffic actually is really nice as well. It's, we had so much fog at different times. The light was sometimes being overpowered. The headlights were being overpowered by the amplification of the fog, and it was just a big blur. And so this is really nice timing. And for you folks that are, who weren't there, this big fog bank was coming in, and it was an absolutely wonderful night. So a great job on that. We've got F11, which is providing us with these really super clean stars around our light sources. I don't mind that this is really dark down here, simply because there's not that much of interest. And I want my eye to stay up in this area. That being said, I feel like it might be a little too dark overall. I would consider raising up my exposure, which is going to lift up our midtones and somewhat of our shadows. We can do our shadows too, but I always would start with the exposure, because that's also going to brighten up some of the highlight values. And then if the highlights start to blow out, you can bring those back down again. Notice though, what we're seeing is when I lift up that exposure, this was probably an underexposed shot to begin with. And the reason that that I know that is because we're actually seeing this basically like the pattern of your sensor here, which happens when you dig really deep down into the shadows. So this may have already been brightened up, Vince, when you gave it to us, and I tried to brighten it up even more, and we're starting to see the the limitations of the sensor here. So, but overall, I would say I would like to feel it feels a little bit heavy to me, a little bit too much dark. And so let's forget about the sensor limitations. Ultimately, I think I'd like to see it looking a little bit more like that, bringing some brightness into it, some luminosity. Whenever we're working with black and white images, a good strategy is to try to imagine making as many different shades of gray as you can. And as we lift this exposure up, notice what's happening here. These values are all being pushed down into the edge. If you look at the histogram, as we bring that exposure up, it's starting to spread those tones out, which means there's more actually happening in the darker grays rather than pushing all those tones together. So we're actually creating more shades of gray in this case by raising the exposure up a little bit. And that makes your images feel a little bit more luminous. So perhaps you've got maybe the same composition, maybe a brighter exposure, and see if you can work with that. But overall, great composition, great execution, probably just a little underexposed.
It's also a rendered file, Tim, so there may be more in the raw file too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Always that. One thing I noticed about this image was that the fog is so thick that the base of the tower is completely gone, but yet you see the shadows of the cables that make it look as though that the cables are actually the tower.
Yeah.
It's really weird. That's cool. Like that.
Okay, back to you.
All right, let's see if I can get it this time.
Cool. Got
you
it.
See some crazy green?
Yeah, sure do.
All right, cool, Greg. All right, so similar concept, different picture, different pitcher, but kind of the same thing going on with the different textures of the EL wire, which is electroluminescent wire. If you haven't used that or know what it is, everybody, it's available on Amazon or eBay for $5 or so. It's you get a 6-foot strand of this wire with a little battery pack that holds 2 AA batteries. And it creates all kinds of cool effects, and you can get fog or fire effects or crazy green effects too. So I think I actually like the effect of the other image better. And I don't know if it was, I don't think it's the difference between the color and the black and white. I think it's yeah. I think it's more the image itself worked well with seeing the layers in the picture come through the wire, the EL wire. F16 160 30 seconds. It's interesting. I'm surprised that you have such strong effect from the EL wire at F16 because it's usually pretty dim. But it's recording a really strong, intense way with just a quick swipe through there. Tim, what do you think about this one as black and white versus color? The color is so monochromatic and so intense.
I think I prefer it in black and white, Lance. And the reason is that when it's in color, let's see, can I annotate? Oh, I don't think I can. But when it's in color, it's all a massive green. As you said, it's monochromatic. But when it goes into black, what's that?
I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
That's okay. When it goes into black and white, though, all of the subtle brightness changes throughout the swipe of the light becomes these different shades of gray. So if you look at the one on the left, which is still really cool, we have basically like bright areas where the EL wire was, and then it very quickly goes to dark. On the right, that changes a lot. You have the bright spots that change through this just lovely gradient of gray. And I think that gradient is more powerful in black and white than it is in the solid green color. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so too. And now that I'm looking at these two side by side, the effect of the EL wire is quite different too. Obviously, it's it's stronger on the one on the right, and the picture, kind of takes second fiddle to the light effect, where the one on the left, they're, in a way, they're almost like positive negative. The picture comes forward in the one on the left, and it recedes in the one on the right, and it's kind of enveloped or surrounded by the light. So,
the other thing too, Lance, is it looks like the image on the left, maybe most of the wire was behind,
right.
Where the one on the right, there's more of the light in front of it too, which tends to obscure the picture and send it into the background a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to look at the settings for a second. So we got 30 seconds f16 160, 20 seconds f8 160. So interestingly, 2 stops more light reaching the sensor on this one, but yet on this one, that light seemed, the light effect seems stronger. So interesting. It's cool. I'm glad, Greg, I'm glad that you put both of these in there. It's neat to see the compare and contrast between the two. But I do think I agree with Tim, and the as a study in black and white, I think it's more effective than the monochromatic green, just because it's so intense and it just becomes all about that one color.
Yeah, it's interesting how our eye doesn't notice the subtle gradient in the waves of light when it's green, but when it's black and white, we're much more attuned to that lovely gradient of gray.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Indeed. Cool. Well, what a fun bunch of images.
Yeah, truly.
All right, I'm gonna go back and turn my video on again. And Tim, you want to? Yeah, there you are. All right.
Yep.
So.
And we can unmute all.
Oh, Hadley. No, we didn't get your images. I saw you were there, but we didn't have them. Let me. I'm going to stop my video and go back and see if they did appear.
I wonder if they. Hadley, what time did your Matt? You're muted, Matt.
Since videos, I thought I'd just say hello.
Oh, hey, Matt.
How you guys doing? Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Was running everything. Hey, Matt, can you unmute everybody?
I can, yeah. And everybody can talk now.
Matt, you're muted, Matt.
Yeah, somebody must be listening to the stream. I love it. Hi, everybody. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Matt.
It was a great night, guys. Thank you.
Oh, Vince, you're so welcome.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I've got the bank.
You're so welcome. So, Hadley, did you submit your images today? Was it a little bit later in the day, maybe after we downloaded them?
They're not in the folder, Tim. I don't have them here.
It was about 9 o'clock this morning, between 9 and 10 this morning.
Oh, wow. We should have had them then.
I'm so sorry.
It indicated that they had gone through.
Interesting.
So sorry about
Yeah, I sent two. This is Sue, and I sent 2 pictures as well.
Oh, wait a minute. Yep, here they are. They're in a different folder. All right, load it.
We'll load them up real quick.
Yeah. Give me a second, and I'll get them.
Gosh, sorry
Sid-
about that, y'all.
And for those of you that didn't see it, Seth has a lighthouse behind him.
Yeah, if you guys, if you go to, in the upper right-hand corner, switch from to where it says gallery view, you can click on there and see everybody who's got their video turned on. All right.
Hey, there we go. I'll say hello. Yeah. If you want to show your face, it'd be lovely to see you smile. Awesome.
Ooh,
Jerry, that's got to be Bryce, isn't
Jerry's
it?
at Bryce.
Nice. Nice. Looks like you're actually there. It's beautiful. Wow. Cool.
Okay. Lance is in the jungle.
Suzanne, glad we got you in. Hi, Brian.
To the other pages.
All right.
Well, I haven't figured this out.
That's
I don't know how to.
That's okay. There's Zoom is a fun thing to learn. There we go. There's Vince. Got the good downlight there, Vince.
Yeah, get rid of that.
Oh, that was good.
So Lance is looking.
Secretive.
Nice.
I wonder if Lance, did you find Hadley's as well, or just Sue's?
Yeah, I did. There's something screwy on the folder structure here. I'm having a hard time getting them. Where the heck did the folder go?
Did Sandra submit for this time, guys?
Jungling? I didn't see
Yeah.
any.
Okay.
Was she asking about it?
Yeah.
On yeah, I didn't see any.
Okay.
No, there. I don't have hers. I've got just Sue Wilson and Hadley's.
Okay. All right. Cool. Great. All right. Well, if we have, do you think you're close to showing those images, Lance?
Not quite. No.
Okay. All right. So now that we're thinking about all the things that we want to do, where's the first place we want to go when this travel ban is lifted and we're all feeling safe?
Oof.
Seth?
All of the places that you've already been to that I haven't.
That's a fair answer. A little bit of a cop-out. Name one.
I would have loved to have gone to Lofoten, but or however you pronounce it.
Me too.
Yeah, me
Me
too.
too. Hadley, what about you?
I love Death Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go to Death Valley.
I got to go there for the first time ever back in January. Yeah,
Or the
That was
Salt Flats,
fantastic.
Something out there would be cool.
I didn't get to go to the Salt Flats. I went to the dunes instead. So I'll go back with you. We'll go to the Salt Flats.
Deal.
How about you, Jerry?
Well, I was going to go to the Badlands just before all this hit, and we got a snowstorm, and they closed all the roads in, Wyoming and South Dakota.
Oh.
So I still want to do.
Better safe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, better safe. Brian, how about you?
I want to get back out to Palo Duro Canyon. It's like I'm in South Dallas, kind of Mansfield, and it's like 6 hours from me. But lots of interesting terrain and not a lot of people out there, so you can just have fun shooting out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's a big plus, right? And Vince, how about you? Where's the first place you're going to go?
I'll probably be safe and easy going to the Jersey Pine Barrens.
Oh my gosh! I grew up in Flemington, and I went canoeing down in the Pine Barrens.
The Malacca River.
Yeah, it was tasty. The cedar water was so delicious. I don't know, maybe it's not safe to drink now, but it was when I was a kid. I turned out fine.
More or less.
But I haven't thought about going down to shoot there. Maybe we'd make some night portraits of the Jersey Devil.
It's gorgeous there. I've only recently started shooting it. I had shot it back in the 80s and recently going back, and the cranberry bogs and the woods back there, it's gorgeous. And it's nearby.
fire towers there too?
There is a big fire tower there. I'm not sure you can still get up it.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
I think it's on a nature preserve now.
We've
Oh,
got some great comments coming in from the live stream. We've got, let's see, Greenland, camping anywhere,
yeah, camping anywhere.
Joshua
All right.
Tree, Colorado, another vote for the Badlands, where fingers crossed we're going to be there for the Perseids in August. Please, please. Colorado and Badlands, and Ed likes the Pineys. Juan, Mount St. Helens, of course.
Yeah. Hey,
Hi,
Juan.
How you doing? So, yeah, we have all of our dream destinations. Tim, where's your next dream destination?
Oh boy. Gosh, seeing some of those images from Lofoten, I really would like to go there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd be happy just to go out to my backyard, get up to Glacier,
Mm.
just feel like you can't really go, it's
Yeah.
unsafe to head out, even though I could easily just drive up there, but
Right.
it's not safe to do it. But yeah, I think somewhere in a northern clime, maybe Canada, Lofoten, Alaska, something like that.
Banff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Banff,
just gonna say
exactly.
that.
I got to get back to Banff. Last time I was there, I didn't have a tripod.
Oh, that hurts.
I know, but I had a film camera. That's how long
I
ago it
don't-
was.
Well, I think
Oh,
one of these years we'll be going to Banff with a workshop. So
Sign me up.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
Free sign.
yeah.
I see Lance's face. Does that mean you want to chime in, or you're ready?
Yeah, I've got 5 more images. And
Yes.
one more of Suzanne's too. And
Okay.
I think 2 from Hadley and 2 from Sue.
Awesome.
It's not
Let's,
last call yet. The bar is still open.
All right. So, with no prejudice whatsoever, I'm going to mute everyone and turn my video off. And I ask that all of you turn your video off too. And we'll get back to finishing up these images. Thank you for your patience and sharing your dream destinations.
yeah. It's a tech thing. All right.
Okay, looking good.
So have you got Hadley's Mendocino headlands up there?
Yes, we do.
All right. Awesome.
And you're gonna have to run this. I'll have to talk as I'm looking at your screen because I don't have them. So
Right.
Yep.
So where were we? Are we on you? Are you or me?
no, you know what? I think this is me. Yeah, actually. And Hadley, I'd say this is a really nice job of blending a foreground, if indeed it is, blending a foreground exposure with the Milky Way in the back. It seems to me that if you were shooting the Milky Way with a look like this, the foreground would be pure, pure silhouette or pure darkness. But yet the foreground looks very natural. It does not look over processed or too bright. A lot of times we'll see these Milky Ways in the background and a lit and a foreground blended together, and it just looks fake, and this doesn't look fake. And what we can owe that to, people, is the fact that the whole foreground is subtly darker than the sky and lower in contrast and not as saturated. So those 3 things together make it look more realistic. If the foreground was more saturated, higher in contrast, and as bright, that tends to look fake. And Hadley says, yes, 19 images for Milky Way and long exposure for foreground. Perfect. Well, really nice job of blending them together and making it look realistic. Yeah.
Huh, wow. I got to try to pull up the chat window here because I can't see it.
Yeah, it's tough. I was having that problem too. The other thing I would say, Hadley, you might want to do to kind of blend them together a little bit more is the color seems very different from the foreground to the sky. The color family, like cool, warm. So you might try, cooling off the foreground a little bit, or warming it up. I don't know, because that orange over the horizon is pretty strong. And I think that's where I'm running into that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Lance, what do you think? You see what I'm saying? How there seems to be, the only difference seems to be like there are two different white balances for the foreground and for the sky. And so I'd somehow try to blend them together a little bit better.
Well, knowing that he's, this is the Pacific and not the Atlantic Ocean, I'm assuming the foreground was shot with a little bit of, astronomical twilight, maybe. I don't know, but yeah. I'm also, noticing some funky color stuff going on up in here where there's a, kind of a cyan cast up, especially in the upper right-hand corner, across the top too. I don't know if, bringing the vibrance down, no, it doesn't really do it. I don't know. I think it's a gorgeous image. Anytime when you're combining a whole bunch of images together, it's really tough, no matter what the software does, to have it be, absolute perfection.
Yeah.
I think we're still at a relatively early stage of the technology doing this kind of work. And we're, if you just think about where we've come in the last, 20 years or so from shooting under a full moon with film to photographing the Milky Way in 20 seconds, it's really remarkable. But the technology is still really young, and it's especially with programs like Starry Landscape Stacker and Sequator. We're on the version 1 or 2 or something. It's not mature technology, and I think we expect more than we have a right to from with what we're doing.
I agree with that.
So just enjoy the amazing nature that's out there and what we are able to do that nobody has ever done before. So all right. This file could not be found. Why not? Well, it certainly looks different in this thumbnail view, doesn't it? That's not where it is.
Can you bring it up to loop view inside of the, there you go.
Yeah. So, okay. Not sure what's going on with our folders, but it is what it is, and we are where we are. So let's see, this is Suzanne's, wow, gorgeous. Man, what the?
Who's that?
Who? Yeah.
Is that a self-portrait? That's awesome.
No, it's not a self-portrait. I don't know who that is, unless Suzanne has changed her appearance dramatically. Wow. The quality
she said
of
it's
light.
a Virgin Mary statue, and she used silver effects. Yeah.
Oh, hilarious. The quality of the light is just gorgeous. I love it. And it's a pretty spectacular piece of architecture too. There are a couple of things that, other than the Virgin Mary, that jump out at me and I think distract a little bit from the image. You see a figure in a shot and your eye goes to it. And this figure is subtle and hiding, and it's a pleasant surprise. You see text in an image and your eye goes to it. And on the, this is our, That's our full size image there. You know, I think it's cool. But the other thing that really draws your eye are bright things like this little sign or whatever it is, and the post holding these trees up here. So my inclination would probably be to try to clone those posts out and this little placard here on the sign, just because they're pulling my eye away from the church and the Virgin and the other stuff that I really want to be looking at. So I'm sorry I can't do any work on the file. I just, it's just not where it's expected to be here.
Suzanne said she cloned some other post out and the rest will be gone, smiley face.
Okay, cool. I'm wondering where it is too. It's just sweet little structure. Well done, Suzanne. Really, really nice. Thanks for putting it in there. Okay. And they got all out of order again. Okay. And this is Hadley's. Okay, Tim?
Okay. Yeah, cool. Well, I really like this in black and white. This is definitely reminiscent of some early 40s daytime photography in black and white. And Lance, you'll know who I'm talking about. Was it Ansel or was it Miner that did some
Paul Strand.
Oh, Paul Strand. There it is. Yeah. Okay. But this is lovely. And I love the fact that, notice folks, how there's more than just the fence and the building illuminated. So I'm not sure if Hadley has gone in and added light here and on this fence, or whether,
Sorry.
Or, it's quite all right. Or whether that was natural light. But whatever it is, if these buildings in the back were darker, then it wouldn't have that same effect. So we're being kind of pulled into the photograph by those all existing light. Okay, great. Well, that's perfect then. But it does allow us to look back in here. It allows us to move through the photograph. Also, I like that these three windows are brighter, whether that was a process to be that way or whether it was the existing light, whatever it is, it works out. The only thing I would say is that I might consider darkening down the fence a little bit. While it is the highlight, it does kind of stop us from moving into the photograph a little bit. And then what we can see, yeah, thank you. Just darkening it down a little bit makes the windows back here the brightest thing in the frame. And by doing so, we've taken off so much emphasis on the thing that's blocking us from moving in. And then the other thing I want to point out, Hadley, is notice how the left-hand side of the fence is got all that texture on it. And notice how as we move to the right-hand side of the fence, and Lance, maybe you could zoom in on the left-hand side of the fence for me so we could show everybody that beautiful texture that's in there. And then as we start to move to the right, that starts to fall off a little bit because of the angle. You're less oblique of an angle. And so that's really tricky to paint a fence line all at the same angle. And a lot of times what I'll do is to keep the fence evenly illuminated, instead of being off to the right and just swinging my flashlight, what I'll do is I'll position myself away from the fence and walk as I paint. And that way the light is the same distance from each one of the fence posts as you're walking by. And that way you don't have to worry about swinging the flashlight, which will ultimately make the one side that you're closer to, which in this case is probably the right-hand side, it won't make that brighter. Okay, so, but really nicely done and nicely seen. And I don't think I would change much. For me, I might just bring up the exposure a little bit and then drop the highlights down just to add a little bit more luminosity to the to the image. Yeah, we're starting to see some stuff on the skyline there. It just makes the sky a little bit brighter as well. And yeah, really cool. Great idea. Great execution.
Hadley, are you familiar with this image?
Ah, there it is. Look at that.
We both went right to this one, didn't we, Tim?
Yeah, yep.
1916. Hadley, for you, I hope that someday your image is worth as much as this one, because it's worth a fortune. Cool. I love this too. Really, it's great. All right. So, oh, here's one of Sue's. Okay. So 60 with a IRIX lens, probably 15 seconds, 2.8, 6400. We got some, we have some aurora going on back here. Wow. Neat. I'm just enjoying looking at it, and the subtlety of the tonality in there is great. The leading lines of the grass in the foreground taking us up into the sky. The crotch in the horizon there makes for an interesting horizon, and then of course the color with this, crazy gradation in there. Super sharp. I think you made a definite good choice, making sure that your stars were nice and sharp, and sacrificing this grass in the foreground. I don't think that's a problem. Doesn't bother me at all. No,
yeah, not at all.
Yeah, let me take that down. There's that chat window. All right. Okay. Only thing in here, let's make that go away. That's an easy one, right? So grab your clone tool, set to heal, click on one end, shift click on the other end, hit the backspace bar to reselect or resample the clone spot until you get one that you like, and call it done. And gorgeous. But now there's just a tiny little bit of detail here of the blades of grass or the stalks of grass against the mountain range there, and I wonder
I think that's coming across in the feed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you see it in here? There's a little tiny bit.
Oh, just barely. Yeah.
Just barely.
Yeah.
I don't really think it's enough to pull out. But if you want to, one way to bring it down is just lower the blacks and get a nice, really strong black in there. Let it go. There might be just enough in there to pull it out, but it's going to leave an unsatisfying lack of contrast in the foreground there. But this way, I just brought the blacks down about 20 points, and it just gave you a real solid black silhouetted foreground. And I appreciate that you did not do anything with the vibrance and the saturation here. The subtlety of the color works very nicely there. Cool.
Yeah, nicely done, Sue.
Beautiful. So there's, yeah, look at that. The wires going through a larger portion of the frame. Yeah, we just got rid of the one that counted. Okay. Sweet. And let's see.
Oh, speaking of fire towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, fire towers.
All right. Well, I love the I mean, you can't help but look up at a fire tower, right? But the looking up here really, I think, maximizes the sky, and it looks like we're looking, up into the tower and then up into the sky, and we're really getting that feeling. A lot of times when we don't have near foreground subjects, and they're all in the background, it's kind of hard to tell that you're actually looking up. But in here, we're really getting that feeling of an upward sweep, and I love that. Looks like we've got some light recorded as you're walking up the stairs. That's cool. Some illumination from indoors, I'm assuming, was probably from your flashlight or something. And Sue, the foreground looks real nice. I'm not sure what the light was. Maybe it's a partial moon or something, but notice how again, like we were talking about that image earlier of the seascape, that the foreground is muted, meaning it's a little bit darker than the sky. It's also not as saturated, and it's also lower in contrast. And that really, I think, is a nice way to make an image look like nighttime and make it feel realistic. And so Sue's telling us that it's a partial moon and a Luxley inside, and that's great. The only thing I think I would do here, well, there's two things. Sue, number one, the bright area in the background in the middle right to the right of yep, there we go. That needs to be dealt with, either cloned out, or what is that? That's another building or something.
The structure, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
some
it's a sign. It's a sign.
Yep, I would go ahead and try to downplay that. You could either do some creative cloning over it, or at least darken down those white areas so it doesn't draw our eye so much. And I think that would be about it. I'm just kind of putting my thumb over that right now, and that's looking pretty good. I think the rocks in the foreground and the grasses, initially I was like, oh, maybe they're a little bit too bright. But now that I've sat with it for a minute or two, I'm really enjoying it, the brightness that they are. Lance, could you zoom in on the bright rocks? Maybe, if anything, I would just take the brightest white areas of those rocks and bring them down just a touch. But I really like the grasses and the luminosity of the grasses, or the brightness of the grasses. I think they're right on the mark. And so Lance looks like he's going to go in there and darken those down a little bit. And it doesn't, we don't have to do a lot, right? You guys, just enough so that it's not the brightest highlight. Because remember, when that bright area, oh, that looks good, Lance. Yeah, exactly what Lance did. Hey, Lance, could you do the before and after with the without that pin over it so people can really see it? So that was before. Yeah, look at that. That is just wonderful. Remember
oops, let me make these go away too here.
Yeah, when bright spots are surrounded by darkness, even though they're still not all that bright, they're going to catch our eye. And the rest of the scene is so lovely that I want it to be a secondary subject and not a primary subject. And by doing what Lance is doing, by removing that sign and then darkening down those rocks in the foreground, now let's see a before and after, Lance. And you guys will see as he does this how much that jumps out at our eye. And back again, look at that.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's a bright spot at the edge of the frame there.
Yep. So that would be my recommendation, Sue.
Okay. One other thing that I wanted to comment on was, by the look of these clouds, this is a stack of images. 21 seconds. Yeah, these are not 21-second star trails. I don't really see any reason, you certainly may have one, so I don't see a reason to do stacking on an image like this, because you get this weird, I think the cost is that you get the funky repeating shape in the clouds. It's not enough of a gap to get a time gap between exposures to get gaps in your stars, but you do get that, just that 1 second creates this, weird blurring in the clouds there. So I'd kind of rather see it just as one longer exposure, as long as it needed to be. If there was a lighting reason for doing that, Yeah, sure, why not? But just, so you know that the trade-off of stacking is that you end up getting funky cloud formations in this case. So,
Nicely done, Sue.
yeah, all right. Is there anyone else whose image we haven't seen yet? I think I got them all. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 more. So that should be everybody.
Yep, Hadley's and Sue's, yeah.
And then Suzanne's, so the 5th one there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
and she said this is Nicasio in West Marin, which is indeed an old haunt of Steve Harper's, which she mentioned in the chat.
Cool.
And yeah, actually the very last time that I photographed with Steve was in the town of Nicasio, and it's a place that he had photographed in the 80s. So surprised I didn't recognize it, but anyway, thank you for posting that, and thanks to everybody for submitting your images tonight and sitting through our technical difficulties.
Yeah.
We're learning. It's a new world for all of us, and we just want to keep busy and keep providing opportunities to look at work. And if we can't be outside making them, we can be inside making them, or we can be, looking at them and talking about them. Thursday. So our next broadcast is Tuesday, right, Tim? Blog chat.
Blog chat would be Tuesday. Yep. Instagram live on Wednesday. And hopefully we'll do another image review on Thursday.
Yep. So, thanks to everybody. Really appreciate you being here and the effort to hang out with us. We had a good time, and it's really a great bunch of images. So
yeah, really.
Thanks again.
Yeah, Matt, can you unmute everybody?
I can. Hold on 1 second. All participants are unmuted.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. That was fun.
Hey, thanks so much.
Wonderful, guys.
You want to be
Thank
on the
you.
video?
Thank you a
I'm
lot.
turning on my camera.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Truly, it's great to see y'all.
Indeed. Jerry, what is your background there?
It's something I shot the first night that we were at Bryce.
Is it a big print? It almost looks like a big screen, LCD screen.
No, it's the virtual background in Zoom.
Oh, okay. That explains it. All right, cool.
Even though I have to admit, looking at this, I'm tempted to fire the printer up.
Yeah.
Good. Well, hope you do.
Yeah.
Hope you do.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks again. Yeah.
Can we do a screenshot really quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. For everybody that's here on the screen, start waving, and I'm going to count down. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank
thank
you.
you. everybody.
Have a
We'll
great
see you
night,
all
guys.
next time.
Evening.
All right. Thanks again. Good night.
Good night.